Hi everyone, and welcome to the process video for my Explosion mini book. Let's get started with the papers. You want 3 squares, 8.5 inch all around, and you're going to want to fold them in a certain way. And so right now I'm going to show you how to fold them. You're going to fold up once in half. And a bone folder is a good idea for this project. It helps keep everything nice and flat and workable. And you're going to turn it 90 degrees or turn it around, and then you're going to fold it in half again. And now you're going to turn it at an angle and fold it point to point. And you're going to do that on both sides. Then you've got your triangle. So you're going to do that with with the other two as well. And so you're going to have 3 of these squares folded up into triangles. And these will be the 3 components that will be the base to your to the explosion book. I'm showing you how to do it. I'm showing you that 3 times because that way you can, get it. It took me a second to get it too. Alright, so after you got your squares all done and folded, you're going to want to ink them. For this I use the vintage photo distress ink, and I use a paddle brush for this because Barbara suggested it because it just makes a nicer grungy edge. And make sure you get all the sides, all the folds. And you only want to do it on the side that is going to be showing up. So on the back side, if it's going to be the back, you don't need to bother that because that's going to be covered and glued. Once you got all 3 squares inked up, you want to take your scissors and rough up all the edges all around the squares to give it that, extra aged look. I'm just basically rubbing the blade on my scissors across the paper, and this is a cardstock scrapbook paper, so it can hold up to that. Alright, so we've got our 3 squares, and we're going to put them at an angle and figure out which we want on top. So you're going to have 2 on top, and I'm marking here where they're going to be glued. So those 2 squares in the middle will be glued on top of the right and the left of that middle square. And then you want to get some scrapbook paper or digitals, whatever you want, images, book page. You want to cut them up. You need 10 squares in 4x4. I did the same thing with these. I roughed them up and then inked them up too. Again, using the vintage photo. This is a great way to use up that scrap paper that you have laying around. You get bits and pieces, or you get a lot of book page. This is a great way to use all that up. now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out my triangles or my squares. I'm not glued. I haven't glued them yet. I'm not going to yet. I'm going to lay out my 4x4 squares to figure out exactly where I want to put each one and in which direction. Now those 4 you see across the middle, from the left to the right, those stay flat. So those are going to be the ones that we do pockets and flips on. And so now what I'm going to do is I've decided where I want them placed. So I'm just going to run a bead of art glitter glue around the edge. You don't need any in the center. And then you see, make sure you center it so you leave a little border all around. And just do the same thing with all the different 4x4s that you've cut out. Now that all of our 4x4 squares are glued down, we can go ahead and attach all 3 squares together. And I'm just going to use some double-sided tape. You could use the glue too if you want. I just decided to go with the double-sided tape. Now this part was the trickier part for me, making sure that everything was folded correctly. So here we go. Keep an eye on this. You want to make sure that the ones in the middle, which I'm not doing right now, is they stay flat, because those are going to be the pieces you decorate. You put your pockets and your flips on. It's not correct right here, but as you can see, as I continue folding it and figuring it out, I realize that those end pieces need to be flat, and those end pieces are also going to be what you attach your book covers to. So you want to keep that in mind. And I always use the bone folder every time I folded it, just to make sure everything stays where it's supposed to stay. And if you want, you can slow down this part of the video so you can see exactly, the folding and all that fun stuff. So the 2 points at the top and the bottom, those are going to fold inward towards you, or, inside the book. And there you have it. That's the pop-up book. Now the fun part comes, which is decorating. I'm going to start decorating with stencils and some ink. So here I'm using some archival ink and coffee, and then some stencils, all available at PM Artist Studio. Those numbers are designed by Carrie the Crafter, and again, they're available at pmartiststudio.com. If you're interested in those, you can save an extra 10% by using my code EddieFan10. I'm also going to use a iron oxide, the distress oxide rather, in this patina color to add a little more interest to the pretty neutral background. And especially on this black page, it really makes everything like really good. And use what stencils you have. You don't have to use these numbers. You don't have to, do the same patterns. This is definitely an area where you're free to be creative and have fun. So this is most of the stenciling that I'm going to do, but there will be some more later where I'll try to match up some of the stenciling with the flips and pockets and stuff. Here I just picked out some sentiments, mostly C words, because this is the theme for this hop was see me, you see. So I went with the letter C. And here I am taking a piece of the scrapbook paper that I cut off to make an 8.5 by 8.5 square, and I'm just measuring it out, and I'm gonna rip it into a little triangle to form a pocket. Now with some of the other leftover pieces, I'm going to create tags and stuff. So for this particular one, I'm going to create a tag and just kind of sketching out, like for size wise, for the width of the pocket, so it fits and it doesn't also run into the edges. So when it folds, you don't fold your tag and mess it up. So there, it fits great. And once I cut the notches on the ends or on the corners, they're going to be the tag's going to fit perfectly in there. And then I just decorated with some more of that scrap paper that I used in the book, layered it on, and added some other embellishments. This is a great opportunity to use your stamps too, to give it a little more detail and a little extra something. And as you can see here, I'm using the stencil again to extend the design from the original stenciling, so it looks like one continuous design. And after I added the tag in, I had this little book, put some words and a picture in there. That's not my picture. Some wish it was, but it's not mine. And then I attached it with the mini paper clip. And over here, I'm creating a corner tuck. So the bottom point of the triangle is going to be on your right. And then again, I'm just tearing it by hand. Give it that more aged kind of vibe. And with this one, I created another tag as well. And on this tag, I rounded the edges or the corners just to make it a little bit different. And I'm just using some scraps here to embellish the tuck. And that's an embossed leaf or a die cut leaf that's been painted all kinds of colors. But it's got like a greenish patina look, so it goes really well with the rest of the book. Now, before I put that sentiment down, I wanted a little more contrast against the paper in the back. So I have these labels just printed out on copy paper. And I tore that sucker out, inked it up, and then once I put the sentiment on top and then glued it down on the background, it stood out much better. now we're going to take some more of that scrap paper from the edges, and we're going to create this flip. And you want it straight at the top, and then I'm going to just tear it at the bottom and give it a jagged edge. And then take a piece of what I cut off and make a hinge to allow it to flip open. I'm just adding more detail here with the stencil. And I'm using black ink this time just to make it stand out a little more. And here I'm using the stencil in the same position, but with the flap down to create that continuity of the stencil. So now I'm going to create the hinge using a piece of that scrap leftover paper. Just fold it in half, crease it. Probably a good idea to use the bone folder too to make sure it stays nice and crisp. After I add some ink to both pieces, I'll glue it down, and I'm going to use the Fabrifix glue for this because I just felt like it needed it to be stronger adhesive. So if you're counting, that's about 3 types of adhesives I've used so far. And then just add a clip to just so it stays nice and flat so it can dry. And then here I'm adding just a little domino as a tab to flip up. And then creating or cutting out some circles. This is a 1-inch punch, and I'm cutting out 4 circles. I'm going to attach 2 together with some glue, but first I'm going to punch holes in it if I can figure out how to use my crocodile. You have to unlock it first, by the way, before you can use it. And you got your 4 pieces there. Just ink them up and glue them together. And then we're going to use a brad to attach each set of circles, one to the flip on the page, and then one to, oh, this is another glue. There we go, glue stick. I think that's 4 now, right? 4 types of adhesives. So once you attach them, the 2 circles together, you ink them up, get them all looking good, and then you're going to attach them with the brad, one to the flip and then one to the base there. And on the back of the base, you'll see the clips from the brad, but that will be covered up with one of the book covers because this side that I'm working on right now is the back of the book. I was able to use the crocodile for the hole on the top on the flip, but for the hole in the base I just used a craft knife. Here I'm just using a sentiment to cover up the blades from the wings of the brad. And the last thing we need to do is just add some string to make it a proper closure. A little bit more embellishment to the flip, and then I'm going to create just a little notebook, like just a pad of paper with some scrap papers. Like this one's coffee dyed. There's some that are just like papers that I've sprayed on. There's some just plain coffee dyed paper, and just create a little pad or a little stack of papers, and you're going to want to punch holes in the top. You want 2. And then take some more of that string and tie up your all your pages together, and then just set them right there inside the book. Now for the square on the opposite end, I am taking a hand stamp, the hand with the finger pointing, and I'm going to add it, stamp it onto some scrapbook paper because I'm going to use it as a closure, and I want it to be a little more sturdy than just copy paper. And then just trim that little bad boy out. And we'll attach a brad to that hand so it can swivel open and close. And we're going to create another flip up on this side, but the flip's going to have a pocket. So I've already added the flip up to this corner here, you'll see in a second. And same thing, just scrunched it up, make sure the stencil's matched. And then here I'm placing the hand down, trying to figure out where I want to put it. And just mark off the hole where you want the holes to go in position. And again, this end piece is going to be the front part of the book. So the front cover is going to go on the back of this. So you don't have to worry about covering the Brad's legs on the back. And I'm using small brads. See, they're not very long. So you're not going to have an issue. Now, if you do have a long stemmed brad and you want to trim those down, just get a wire cutter and they cut pretty easily. Just be careful. Now, yeah, so you see this goes to the back, and you see that they're not very big, kind of small, so that works out great. I did this in reverse, so this is me creating the flip up. Understand that I have 5 hours of footage from making this that I whittled down to less than an hour, so things can get a little confusing in the editing room. Now, I know I said a pocket earlier is going to go under here, but it's actually a little envelope that I had made, like a little folder envelope with different little bits of ephemera inside. And it's already decorated on the front with a little paper doll and all that fun stuff. And what I'm going to do though is I'm adding a magnet to the flap, and then a magnet will be added to the back side of this panel, so that it holds the little envelope in place. But you'll see in a second, once I get it all together, how it can flip open without having to be detached. I decided to embellish it a little further, some labels and stamps, and then just make sure that when you're using your magnets that or you're placing them, that you've got the right side, you're gluing the right side on, because you want them obviously to connect. Again, I'm using the silicone glue to attach them because it seems to be the strongest glue I have. And so you see there, it attaches. And I couldn't resist, so I added some more embellishment with a little a round little cluster card and some lace. Now it's time to attach the covers. So remember, each end is a cover. And so I've taken some chipboard, and these are cut into 5x5 squares. And then on top of the chipboard, I had some burlap fabric with the polka dots that I glued on, just using gel medium, acrylic gel medium. Now I'm marking off here what's the front and what's the back, so that I don't get confused. But first, I'm going to decorate the front and make it super grungy, funky. I've taken a piece of vellum here that is has a grid pattern on it. You can't really see, and some music sheet. And a piece of that black paper also I'll use, that I used inside the book. And just, I'm gonna kind of make stripes to look like layers. So yeah, just watch. that I've ripped up the pieces I want and I've got the paper doll I want, I'm just going to rough up this little playing card and then ink everything up nicely, make it look nice and grungified. And this little playing card I'm going to use on the front cover, obviously, but I attach it with a brad and it'll turn out pretty cool. And that one gear up on the left, I thought I was going to use it, but I did not. It wasn't necessary. And that's the thing with doing stuff like this is, you gather a bunch of things and then you kind of like pick and choose, narrow it down, and refine what your final product's going to look like. And I'm just doing some more stenciling to repeat what's inside the book on the front, using Carrie's numbers. And this is the vintage photo ink. To add a little extra glitz and sparkle to the front, I splattered some of this distressed paint in silver all over everything basically. And I'm just using my little acrylic block to put the paint down. Just makes it easier when you're just trying to use a tiny amount of paint. And this is a high fluid acrylic, so it dries quickly. So you got to keep that in mind when you're using those paints. They're great paints, but they do dry quickly. Which for this particular part of the project works great. That way I don't have to wait forever for it to dry. And I'm going to use also the black soot in that same acrylic paint to add a little bit more. Here's where I've assembled everything to where I think I want it. And under the curiosity up top there's a piece of fabric that's coffee dyed. And I'll glue that under there. And here I'm taking a little brad and attaching this, the wheel there, the sprocket I guess, and attaching that with a brad to the playing card. You can actually spin that. It's a gear, I'm sorry, a gear. Okay, it's time to start assembling and attaching the different elements for the book cover. So I'm going to use a Fabrifix for this bottom layer because I'm gluing on top of a burlap fabric, so I want to make sure it sticks really well. And I just going around the edges, and I don't need to glue the middle. Just make sure your edges are nice glued and good to go. This is that vellum, which is great. It's not super thick, so it's great to work with. It's easy to rip. And again, just using the Fabrifix glue just around the edges to get that to adhere well. So this is pretty much the book cover, but I decided to need a little bit something extra, so I have this circle here. It's from a Tim Holtz ephemera pack. It's a thicker cardboard type piece, and some butterflies and another little strip with a date on it. And I'm going to take that little black circular label and attach it with some glue to the back of the porthole circle, and then just add all these elements to the cover. For the back of the book covers, I decided to take an old gel print of mine, which is this, and cover it in that. I just used some matte medium to attach it. And then just trimmed it off, and that way when you open the book, you're gonna see part of the back. You won't see just chipboard, you'll see something cool. And this is a piece of vintage felt ribbon, or I'm sorry, velvet ribbon that my friend Sharon sent me. Just attaching it with some fabric fix, and I just made sure that it was long enough for me to be able to tie a bow in the front. So this is our closure, and the color just worked out so well with the book. So thank you for that, Sharon. And there you have it. Now we just have to attach our actual book. So remember, I made marks to ensure that I knew which was the front, which was the back. And so once you make sure you have that position correctly, just glue that bad boy up. I even made a little mark here just to make sure that I centered the book onto the back of the covers. Now, if you're wondering, the remaining squares in the book, I just did like little collages with some paper scraps, because those will be folded in the book. So you want to make sure that you don't really do too much on the creases. That's using anything bulky, because that's going to be folded. The inside squares are all decorated just with a little collage, but remember, those are going to be folded in the book, so you want to be mindful of the folds. And so thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you make your own. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.